Going on, Facebook folk? Don't mind my appearance. Whew, been out here. You know, it's supposed to be cold and supposed to drop down in the 30s. So I had to do some work. That's what this is. Got my boots over there. So I just wanted to hop on real quick because I had harvested some kale and I was gonna take it in the house, but then I saw some slugs on it, and it was like real dirty because it had just finished raining and the mud splashed all up on it and everything. And so I left it outside, and got the water hose and stuff, and then figured I'd go ahead and clean it and everything outside. And as I was doing it, I was listening to my Maverick City music, get my worship on, thanking God for the harvest, because the word says that he is the Lord of the harvest. The word also says that the harvest is many, but the workers are few. And he wasn't necessarily talking about vegetation or anything. He was talking about lost souls. And so I began to think about that particular scripture and what I was doing. And it made me think about send you some kale and some tomato. What's going on, Juju? But yeah, I began to think about that, and I began to think about, the Willie Moore Jr. video that I shared yesterday when he was talking about the harvest and people jumping around at church because the pastor said that it's harvest season or whatever, and how those who've never really had to work on a farm or anything like that don't understand that harvest season is the hardest time of the farming cycle. So I just wanted to hop on real quick, and in the spirit of that text, talking about the harvest is many, but the workers are few, and talk about that in reference to what I was just doing. And so, I post pictures of the kale and the collards all the time when I put it in the crock pot or when it's in the sink or even when it's in the bowl. And so what that is the final stages of the harvest. Putting it in the sink to soak it in the vinegar in case you missed any bugs or anything like that, and then putting it in the crock pot so that it could cook, and putting the smoked turkey in it or the smoked turkey bacon or whatever so it can give it the flavor or anything like that. But this is the part that we don't get to see. This part. You got to do this. And, I've even showed sometimes with the big leaves or whatever the case may be. But in between all of that, you got to pick this part off of it. Off of this. This is, the trash and the leftovers. Which means that you got to do some work to prepare the harvest that we jump around for, or the harvest or the lost souls or whatever. You got to prepare it. There's going to be parts of the harvest that you can't use. That's going to be trash that comes with it, but you got to get that part off of it to get to the part that you're going to cook. So you're going to have some trash with it left over, but you got to separate the usable part from the part that you can't use. That takes work, whether we talk about vegetation or whether we talking about people. They come raw off of the plant, and you got to get the part off them, the fleshly part, the worldly part, the stems, the twigs, all the stuff that you throw in the trash or in the compost pile or whatever. You got to get all that part off of them, or off of the kale. And this reference, we're talking about the kale. So even with the harvest, there's parts that you're not going to use. You can use it for compost or something like that, but for the purpose that you intended for, to tend or want to harvest for, that part is discarded. You got to take that part off of it. If it's something that has seeds in it or whatever, you got to clean the seeds out or whatever the case may be. But there's going to be parts of it that you can't use or that you won't use or don't want to use. You can, but it's nasty, it's bitter, it's crunchy, it's not going to cook down right or whatever the case may be. And so you could keep it but it's just not going, it's going to take away from the fullness of the part that's nutritional, or the part that you want to work with. And even in that, I got my water hose, I got my slides on, because my boots was muddy because it had rained, and because the ground was wet and everything. So my hands are clean now because I washed them off, but my hands were like filthy. My boots were like filthy. And so I had to get the water hose and rinse them off outside, because I didn't want all of that in the sink. And so with the harvest, you're going to have some dirt. You're going to have some grit and some grime and all of that stuff, and you got to clean the harvest off, or you got to clean the people, the souls that's coming from the world or coming out the garden, because the world, the garden, however you want to put it. You got to clean them. You got to clean it up. You got to get all that dirt and all that grit off, and that dirt's going to get on you. It's going to be on your hands. It's going to be on your good shoes. Cleaning the harvest, you're going to get dirty. You're going to get some dirt on you. It's just unavoidable. And like I said at first, the reason why I was doing it outside was because when I was getting it and bringing it up the steps, I saw a slug on one. Then as I began to take the stems out and everything, I saw spiders. If you're arachnophobia, yeah, you got to deal with some stuff that you're scared of. You got to deal with some stuff you don't want to touch. Slugs are slimy. There even was some little squash beetles. There's these little beetles. They almost look like ladybugs, but they black with yellow spots. But they will destroy your harvest. And so you got to deal with some pests. You got to deal with some stuff that comes with the harvest that you don't really want to deal with, but you got to deal with, because it will destroy your harvest. Spiders are pretty okay, depending on what kind they are. If they're spider mites or something like that, it'll destroy your plants. But spiders are pretty cool, because the spiders catch and kill the insects that will destroy your plants. But at the same time, you don't want to take the spiders in your house, because now you got spiders in your house. So it's a beneficial insect if it's outside in your garden, but it's not beneficial if it get inside your house. Message. But then you got the slugs. Slugs will just destroy your harvest. Plus, again, you'll come in your house. Beetles will destroy your harvest. Plus, again, if you don't clean the harvest properly, or do it right, you'll come in your house. And so you'll end up with pests in your house from your harvest. But the harvest is good, but it come with pests. Come with bugs, come with dirt. It comes with labor, and it comes with parts that you can't use. Not to mention, it's a whole lot. I can't cook all of this at one time. I can, but 9 times out of 10, it will be more than what I need to cook. And so you got to know how much of the harvest, because there's still something out there, how much of the harvest to pick, and how much to leave. But see, sometimes we get excited and we want all of the harvest at one time, and then you end up wasting it because you can't use all of it at one time. Or if you have to, it's some parts of it that's turning yellow on it, and so that meant that had been on there too long, and it was about to go bad. You got to, if the harvest comes, you got to be ready to reap it. You got to be ready to collect it, or it'll go bad. It'll go bad in the field. And so you have to harvest that. But then you might end up with more than what you can use. And so then, after you done cleaned it and everything, you got to separate the part you can use now, and you got to properly prepare the part that you're not going to use, so that you can be able to store it or freeze it. So you got to have storage space. And you got to know how to properly store it and how to properly care for it. And in the cooking it, to use it, you got to know how to properly cook it. So it's more to harvest season than a hoop and a holler and a rejoice. The same way you got to understand how and when to sow your seeds and how to care for the plant, you got to understand how to harvest. You got to understand when to harvest. You got to understand how to clean and care for the harvest. You got to understand how to store and where to store the harvest. You got to have room to store the harvest. You got to have knowledge of how to prepare it. There's more to the harvest than just receiving it. And sometimes it's just not of receiving. Sometimes you got to go out and you got to collect it. Because sometimes the harvest don't just come to you. Just wanted to let you know that. But it is harvest season. Be blessed. Love you, folk.